All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Jason Dagate, and joining us now is the Lafourche Parish President, Charlotte Randolph. And of course, we want to wish you all a happy 4th of July as we took some breaks here from HTV and weren't on live yesterday. And happy 4th to you as well, a day late.
Well, thank you. I wore my red, white, and blue just because every day is Patriotic Day.
That's right.
And so I thought it would be appropriate to do today as well.
It was, and you know, Fouchon and everything down the bayou was hopping. They had a number of festivities. I know y'all have one in Thibodaux for the 4th, and glad to see most of all there weren't any serious road fatalities as a result of the 4th weekend.
That's correct, and visiting the Golden Meadow Fouchon Rodeo was it's always exciting to be there. The focus of that particular rodeo are scholarships for South Lafourche High School students, and it was very well attended, very well. There were many participants. There were people eager to volunteer, and so it was a very good weekend for them. Certainly the weather was very nice as well.
That's right. The fishing was excellent over the past few days, and hopefully it remains that way down south.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the state of Lafourche Parish. You know, we're in the summer months now, but let's talk a little bit about permits. I know that's been somewhat of an issue in Lafourche Parish. In general, if you can just explain to our listeners and viewers and residents of Lafourche, when somebody needs to get a specific permit, what is the procedure that one has to go through?
We've actually begun a campaign recently that focuses on permits. As simply as we could, in as few words as possible, to say to people, before you build it, permit it. The legislature, after Katrina Rita, decided, and based upon the urging of both the insurance companies as well as FEMA, that it was time for Louisiana to adopt a code for building. And they adopted the International Building Code at that point in time. It became effective in 2007. Changed life as we knew it here. Certainly elevations were something that we were cognizant of simply because of where we live. Our ancestors knew very well why it was important to build high and build strong because of the hurricanes. We kind of got a false sense of security after the fact that we had not had a major storm in this area in over 40 years after Betsy. Andrew certainly did its damage here in Terrebonne, but it was not to the extent that Betsy brought in the water and everything else. So the legislature complied with what the insurance companies and FEMA requested and enacted Act 12 of the legislature, which is the official form of the building code. At that point, there was not much building going on insofar as, let's just say, as far as more remodeling, more repair after the storms, and certainly again after Gustav and Ike, we experienced that. Those 4 storms in these areas, both Lafourche and Terrebonne and regionally, experienced quite a bit of flooding, of wind damage, and things like that. So at that point, it really became important to enact or to implement what the legislature had enacted. So we began enforcing the building codes. Simultaneously, and previously to that, the National Flood Insurance Program was in jeopardy in Lafourche Parish. There were about 50 variances granted to residents in the area, arbitrarily, not without a pattern, and therefore FEMA came in and said, well, the first thing they did was they removed our 5% discount. Because we were not in compliance with the flood program, and began to monitor those 48 or so variances that had been granted, to the extent that the district attorney had to step in and begin ordering compliance. Finally, this year, 2011, we were able to rectify what had been done in the past. We have not achieved the 5% discount yet, but we're working toward it.
And just a little bit about the 5% discount. What does that apply to people's premiums? Or?
That's
Okay.
correct. That's correct. And what happened when FEMA came in and began studying the permits, the variances that had been issued, it put us in jeopardy. It put the entire parish in jeopardy, all of the residents, of being able to obtain flood insurance. And that's where the legislature was headed in 2005, saying it's time. It's obvious that with all this damage, both in New Orleans and throughout the southern part of the state, that we need to begin a process where we're building safer and stronger.
Okay.
Because of the insistence of federal agencies such as FEMA, because there's only so much money that is included in the FEMA program. And it's not just for South Louisiana, it's for all over the country, including earthquakes, including tornadoes, including all kinds of disasters. So we definitely wanted to be in compliance and to step up what we needed to do in order to provide structures that people could come home to businesses that could begin operating immediately after a storm, just because they were built well and built strongly. It's a lot of history involved in that, and I can do a lot of talking about that. But it's so very important based upon those two guiding considerations here, because you definitely want a structure that can withstand the winds that we experience here with storms, as well as the storm surge. So they go hand in hand. There's been some consternation recently concerning the fact that some of those rules seem so onerous. And quite frankly, in my opinion, some of them are, which is why we coordinated with State Representative Jerry Gisclair. And he was able to pass House Resolution 53, which requires the State Building Code Council to begin some introspection, to begin actually looking at the codes that they're enforcing, to determine if there are alternatives, to determine if there are better ways of doing this, without it becoming such a major undertaking for many of the residents of the parish. So we're excited about that, because we drew attention to that and said, why do, or who is telling us these rules, and why do we have to follow them? In the interim, though, unless and until something changes, we have to, because Lafourche is under the microscope.
Okay, and because of where it is geographically, I mean, there's nothing we can do to change that.
That's right.
So we have to, in your office, and I guess, well, let me ask you this: how does parish government comply with those things? Is it something that you have to do as parish president to implement, or is it an act of the council that needs to be done? What measures can you do as parish president?
Well, there's not much latitude. Okay, because this is a mandate of state legislature, and they say to us, these are the rules you have to follow. They don't give us any flexibility, and therefore it's difficult for some of the people in the parish. Look, we have some of the best contractors in the world, and they will build to standards that are exemplary. But at the same time, there are additional requirements. The best example I can give are hurricane straps on roofs. Okay. It provides an extra measure of just fortification, okay, on the roof. So if you don't lose the roof, the chances are you're not going to lose the house, all right? Because you're not going to get the water coming in from the rain, and therefore you're protecting that structure. It's always difficult when someone comes in and tells you what to do, okay, because they say they know better. But we're faced with this situation simply because we're in an area that is vulnerable to these storms. And we are definitely going to continue to follow the rules because we want to keep our flood insurance. And, you know, we've been accused of these onerous rules impeding progress in the parish. But there's nothing that would impede progress in the parish more than not being able to offer flood insurance to our residents.
Right. So I guess your office can't just willy-nilly issue permits to anybody, even though we know you're a reputable contractor, we know you're going to do it right, and we would like to give you the permit so you could start your job and stimulate our economy. But if we just willy-nilly issue it to you based on that, then we may have some problems with flood insurance in the future.
This also includes life safety. The fire marshal's office gets involved to ensure that electrical systems are the best they can be, or the safest they can be, let's put it that way. It involves different agencies adding into the code to ensure that again, these structures will sustain whatever we experience. Now, there's no code that will protect anyone from a tornado. But at the same time, there are many, many ways to protect an investment, which is what a building is, which is what a home is, from damage. You know, you build a levee system, as the South Lafourche Levee District did, and the assumption is that suddenly you're safe, and that's not the case. There's always a risk. But the more you can do to protect, the more you can do to ensure that everything known is put into place, the better off we all are, because not only does it protect the structure you're constructing, but it also protects the one next door as well, because any flying debris can cause many, many problems.
Right. Well, it's an interesting subject, and going down the Grand Isle this past weekend, I noticed in the Golden Meadow area, I mean, you have new businesses popping up all over the place, and I know that's good for the parish and good for the local area to have this new business and new structures going up, new hotels, new gas stations, I think there's a supermarket that might be going up down there as well. All that's good, but we have to make sure permits are properly issued so that residents and everybody else still get that 5% discount in the future, which you say right now Lafourche Parish residents aren't getting it, right?
They're not.
Okay,
They're
but
not.
So what things are you doing as Parish President to ensure, what is your office doing to ensure that they get that in the future?
What we are doing is enforcing the code.
Okay.
Most times that we've determined that there's been a problem is only when people have come in after they've started construction, okay? And what happens then is you have to deconstruct, and that's costly.
Yeah.
That's why we encourage people up front and first and foremost to get a permit, so that there is information provided to them. We have all the criteria listed on our website. We have probably 10 people now working in the department who can serve as people who guide you through the process. Unfortunately,
there's your website right there for
that's
the viewers.
it, and you can, the checklists are on there, and people can access that first. But certainly we're available for any questions that arise. Many situations are different. You know, some people want to renovate their home or remodel their home. And we require adherence to the code then too, because the newer part of the home should be constructed in such a way that that it is in the best possible condition.
And these things here on the residential permit checklist, they're not necessarily things that your office has put down and mandated. These are statewide and federal-wide, and you don't have a choice.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if you look at the website of Storage Shed, I mean, so many people just built a little place in the backyard to store the lawnmower.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, anything under 200 square feet, without electricity, without plumbing, they can build. All right, but they still need elevation on it because of the fact that that structure could potentially damage another structure. It's making it, as I said earlier, much more costly. But at the same time, it's very important for people to realize that debris probably is the greatest cause of damage during a windstorm, because something not constructed to the top, to the safest way possible, can flail about and cause much more damage into people's windows, into people's vehicles, and things like that. So it's an issue we've been dealing with, and as I say, most times when we've had a problem, it's when people began without coming to us first.
Okay.
Lafourche did not have a building code department per se prior to the enactment of Act 12, and therefore it was a learning curve for all of us. But understandably, now one of the downsides to it is insurance companies wanted Act 12 enacted because they said this way they would stay here. Not all did,
right,
though it was enacted. And some rates went up considerably because of it. But there was also some talk at that time that people were going to be able to get a discount if they constructed to the code, and I don't know that that has happened yet either. So it's good now that Representative Disclair has actually put forth a measure that will begin that study and allow the people on that code council to understand how the residents are feeling. I mean, it's easy to sit above a situation and make assessments, but you're not always making the true assessment on how you're impacting people on an everyday basis. So this will give us time to begin that introspection.
Okay. I tell you what, Mr. Serenier is telling us we need to take a short break at this point in time. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have more with Lafourche Parish President Charlotte Randolph. Stay with us.